Live from Orlando, Florida, you're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans, and welcome back to another episode of the OZone Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony, and today we have a special guest joining us from OrlandoMagicHQ.com, our writer, Kieran Patel. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? How we doing today? We doing great?
What's going on?
I'm chilling. I'm excited to be here, man. I'm thankful I got the opportunity because I've always wanted to do something like this. I've never been on a podcast before, but I feel like I'm ready for it. You know, like it's been almost a year since I've been part of this writing team. I'm glad that the viewers, the general audience, going to get to see who's behind those articles. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
We've been talking about this for it feels like a year. I don't think it's been that long, but it's been like a year that we've been like, hey, let's get you on the podcast. And things have happened here and there that we have out of our control, unfortunately. But we're excited to have you again. You've done some amazing work on our website, done some great articles. You're very engaged on social media with Magic fans. So again, now they're putting a face to the name. So again, welcome to the show, and should be a fun episode today.
All right, I'm really excited. We got a lot to talk about, especially with the lotto coming up. So let's get it rolling.
Man, you're a big advocate for Paolo. We're gonna do a little breakdown on him a little bit later on in the episode. But in today's episode, we are going to be touching base on Jalen Suggs' surgery that he just had. What does that mean to the team? Talk a little bit about the offseason, and then go through our tankathon and break down with Paolo. But before we get into that, we're already kind of midway through the NBA playoffs for the second round. How are we feeling with that? Who are your early picks? If you were to select the team right now, who do you think is going to end up making it to the finals and then end up winning?
You gonna go?
Yeah, I'll kick it off here. It's gonna be tough, man. I'm torn. I think on the East, it's gonna be one of the Celtics or Milwaukee. Whoever wins that series, to me, it's gonna make it all the way to the finals. Yeah. That's on the East for me. On the West, I can't decide. It's gonna come down to Phoenix or Golden State, in my opinion. That's gonna be a really, really fun matchup. But again, if you know me, you know I'm gonna be rooting for Steph. Yeah. So I got Steph against possibly Giannis in the finals. Two dudes that I really like. I'm rooting for Steph, so I'm hoping they win. But I'm being honest. Also, it's going to be really, really tough. How about
you, I got the exact same thing going. I know you're gonna love this. My bracket has the Celtics and the Warriors in the finals. I got Celtics beating Bucks in 6, and I really just think that the Warriors, they'll give that gentleman sweep to Memphis. I saw that last game. You know. I'll let them have that one, but I feel like Warriors are coming out strong. They're looking pretty good as of late. Phoenix is a powerhouse though, man. That's the scary part. Is they just play like such a poised and polished game. Like I don't see another team like that that's playing at such a like mistakeless level. You know, they're playing so well lately. So it's really tough to make a decision out of the West. But I agree with you, Al. I don't see any of those. That other matchup, the Heat Sixers, I just don't see either of them getting into the finals. I don't think they're that. I'm not sold on them. You know, it's either Celtics, Bucks. Exactly what we said. Whoever makes it out of there is going to the finals.
Yeah, I like the Celtics for that matchup, really just because Milwaukee's missing out on Chris Middleton, and I think that they desperately need that additional scorer on the floor to kind of help Giannis out. So I think that's going to make it tough. But I think that people shouldn't sleep on Miami. I've liked what I've seen from Miami. Oladipo is kind of raising his game up kind of towards the end of the season, and I think that he's an added boost. You know what's crazy is even with the team that they have, the fact that a player like Duncan Robinson really is not, they're not utilizing him at all, and they just gave him like a nasty big contract. Also, I think
90 mil, right?
90 mil. Yeah, and they're not using, like, how do you not use a shooter, especially in the playoffs? Obviously I don't follow the Heat at all, but I think that that's not a team that they should underestimate, because they have a lot of really solid vets. So I think that on the East side it will come down to the Celtics and Miami, but I think that Miami kind of has the experience over the Celtics. I'm not fully sold on the Celtics just yet, just because they're peaking towards the end. We haven't seen any of that like all season long. It's really on the second half of the season. So I can kind of transition that also to the West side. As much as I like Phoenix and I love the story and I love the coach, I love everything that they're doing. You can't. It's just impossible to count out Golden State. Like they have way too much experience, like way too much experience, and the caliber of players that they have, I think it might just be a little overwhelming.
I gotta agree because sorry, you go ahead, Al.
No, I was gonna simply saying there, not for nothing, but always don't forget CP3 against Steph never ends well for CP3.
That's true. I remember those those matches were always the best because I when I was around 2015, 2016 at that time, I was always rooting for Steph during those matchups because I never liked CP3. Like I'm just gonna say it. I never really liked him all that much. But I do think that they have I think this is the first year that the Steph, Clay, and Draymond trio is healthy since the KD injury. I think that's the very first year since then. So it's impossible to count them out. They may be getting a little older, but I still think that they're a powerhouse.
Yeah, it's crazy because Chris Paul does a lot of things to make you like Chris Paul, but then he also do a lot of things to make you not like Chris Paul. He's told everything about Chris Paul is so bipolar. Because there's moments where I'm just like, man, because I've liked Chris Paul since Wake Forest. And there's moments that you really want to root for him. But then he does some suspect things during the game that I'm just like, man, that's not
I think the one thing I've always been really on edge about Chris Paul, but it was last year's finals and I was watching that dirty play on Giannis, and that had done it for me. I'm like, I'm not rooting for this guy anymore to win it all, to win a ring. I'm not. If this is the stuff he's gonna do as a sore loser, I don't want any part of that anymore. Because he has that great playmaking. He's always been so I don't know how to say it. He's very polished. He's like a maestro of the pick and roll of getting to the mid-range spot. He's so good at that. It's just such a great brand of basketball. And then he does the dirty stuff, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. You can't get my fandom with that.
Yeah, but I mean, kudos to Phoenix for them even taking the risk on a player like Chris Paul, because teams could have easily viewed him as, someone that was on the decline and not wanting to pay him the amount of money that they paid him, and they took the risk. A lot of that has to do with Monty Williams, I would imagine. And he's been able to elevate all those players. Ayton is going to get paid off so heavy because of Chris Paul, just because there was a brief moment where you kind of thought maybe this dude should have been the number one pick. He's not what people were expecting. And then you just add a player like Chris Paul in there and, definitely takes him to another level. So, the playoffs so far has been exciting. But at the same time, Golden State, they still need to get past Memphis. They've been playing really good basketball.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but like Kieran said, man, I think it's one of those things that when they get it going, they get it going. Memphis has done some amazing things early on. Ja is hitting threes like crazy. That's not his game.
Oh, I want to talk about that.
Yeah, we go to San Francisco now. They play at home now. It's a whole different ball game. I think at Memphis, that crowd was really driving them. They had some crazy games, man. They were playing so well. No denying that. But that game one loss without Draymond, the Warriors struggling all game and then still winning that game. That's the series right there.
Showed it all exactly. You had the most perfect Jaren Jackson game. You had everything going for you, and you still in the blue. You have Klay Thompson of all people missing 2 free throws. That is only going to happen once in a blue moon. That's not going to happen. You're this is a game over, and I'd say 6 at worst in 5, in my opinion. It's done. But right. Like you said, that game plan worked so inconveniently for Golden State because they were planning to sag off on Ja the entire time. Those pick and rolls, they were sagging off the entire time. They let him shoot the 3. And it just happened to be a night where he was hot, but he's not going to do it. He's not going to have a shooting night like that again from 3. No. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, hopefully, all this playoff basketball talk, it makes you eager to have your team out there, and hopefully that, that comes sooner rather than later. Because even the play-in tournament was, awesome and fun to watch, and just the thought that we might possibly eventually, maybe depending on how everything kind of turns out, we might just be in that next season. But that's high hopes.
I can see that 100%. I mean, I'm not gonna call it high hopes honestly, because I see there's teams like New York, like Charlotte. they're kind of doing a restructure, and with a team
That
like
is
us,
true.
we're getting some good talent around us. We're getting healthy again. You know, we're on the rise, and some teams also like Indy, they're kind of what we were at last year.
Hmm.
So I
Yep.
got to say, there's a good possibility that we're going to be around the 10, 11 spot. Hopefully 10. It's a possibility.
It's
It's
got to be
doable.
the expectation. It's got to be the
Yeah.
expectation. All right, so
No, but you.
now that we're on that subject, let's get into Magic basketball. Now, Jalen Suggs underwent surgery last week to address a slight stress fracture in his right ankle. He's expected to resume basketball activities this summer and should be ready to be able to have a full recovery and be able to get into training camp with the team. What are your thoughts on the injury? Do you feel like this might impact his summer, a really big summer for him to really develop? A lot of people would say that, his rookie season was a little underwhelming. But do you think that this is a really big issue for Jalen? And Kieran, I'm gonna send it to you first.
I don't think it's that as dramatic as some people have made it. They expressed it as, oh wow, Orlando can't get past these injuries. I mean, it's a a month and a half at worst recovery. So he'll be prepped for summer league, which he'll be okay. But the only thing that I think that people are worried about is him getting the progress he needs during the summer. Which if it's on an ankle, he can still practice shooting, form shooting, actually getting his shot back. So I'm really not stressed about it at all. A lot of people were stressed about it over on Twitter and Instagram, but I don't really see anything wrong with it. I mean, you could kind of tell throughout that end part of the season when they had to keep him out. He was questionable. He was out, you know, ankle bone bruise, stuff like that, and he was visibly limping a lot of times on the court. I think that's on the training staff and the coaching. They should have just sat him out for the rest of the season, shut him down. I don't really think it was that smart to resume his activities like the last few games because it probably might have made it worse.
I agree with you. I think that 100%. I think that if anything, it might be a blessing for him to kind of stay off the legs a little bit because again, he plays so hard and we saw the ankle twisted so many times. It feels like this past season, and what he really needs to work on is on his shooting, so he can kind of go back to the basics, works on the form, work on just set shots. So I think for me, like you, I'm thinking of in a positive note. I know some people are saying he may not play in summer league. That may or may not happen. Even if he plays one game in summer league, that may be enough to get that experience that he needs a little bit to get his flow going and see where he's at in the summer. But for me, it's all about his shot this summer. If he can get that being more consistent, that's all we need Jalen Suggs to be. A little more consistent from the three-point range, mid-range, and that will make him easily a 16 to 18 point a game guard. Again, we haven't had that in so many years
Yeah.
consistently. I know Cole Anthony did it this year, but before that, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we're looking at what, end of September, so we're about 4 months away. I wish that they would have shut him down a lot earlier, because even during the last couple of games that you played in, you can kind of see that there was something a little off with him. Um, there was even moments and times where I kind of saw him limping, so I wish they would have shut him down a lot earlier. But I think that he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be okay. He's young, and the fact that he was able to, for the most part, make it through the whole entire season is a good sign. So it says that it's a slight stress fracture, so I'm not really looking too much into it. It's crazy how in the NBA, any type of injury doesn't matter like how severe or how not severe. Like everyone's so quick to kind of jump into surgery just to make sure that everything's like cleared and the player is ready to go right away. So I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. And if they're saying that he's going to be good to go to begin summer activities, it's definitely a good sign.
Yeah, you know what's funny though? The only rookie that we've had, man, since the new front office has been here, that has not missed time due to injury, France.
Yeah.
That's about it. Like a major surgery type of thing,
And even
or
then-
injury. And even then, he missed the last couple of
And
games
even
Yeah,
with that
then,
ankle.
because he stepped on that ankle, man. That bugged me.
But
I
think
wanted him to
about-
get that Iron Man.
Yeah, like think about Ji, Mo Bamba, Chuma, Cole Anthony, now Jalen.
Every single one.
They've unfortunately all had injuries during the season where they've missed significant time, and then now Jalen having a surgery on top of that. It's just crazy. It's just what are the odds that in 6 years all your rookies get hurt?
It's just
That's
crazy luck. It's horrible luck. I'm
I
praying
mean-
that we don't get that next year.
But at the same time, you're also looking at players like Chuma and Cole Anthony that they came into the NBA already with some type of history of injuries.
Yeah.
Cole Anthony in North Carolina, Chuma in Auburn. So it's those I get. But you're right, we haven't been too lucky, have we?
No, I mean that I think Ji is the worst of them, man. Like you get literally back to back. It was what like 3 games he had to resume and then he's back out. That's just
I
the
bet.
worst.
But just touching on that a little bit, I think a lot of it has to do also with maybe there might be a moment of regret in terms of bringing Jonathan Isaac back too soon from his injury where he got hurt again in the bubble. And I think that there might have been a reflection where they're just like, all right, we're not doing that again.
Yeah,
Because at this point, if something happens to Jonathan Isaac again, then you've really lost all hope for a player that is supposed to be your future. So we've already spent this whole entire time. We're expecting Jonathan Isaac to be back this past season. It doesn't happen. He gets injured again, has another surgery. We're still expecting for him to be ready by training camp. If he cannot make it this whole entire season without playing a majority of the season, then the Orlando Magic really have to make a decision to say, all right, Jonathan Isaac isn't it. But that's what makes this draft so important because I feel like we've been handcuffed to Jonathan Isaac for so long. From the Vooch era to where we're at now, we keep telling ourselves, man, if we only had Jonathan Isaac, things would be different. And I think that it comes to a point that you have to be able to say, I can't rely on Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah.
You need to be able to replace him. And your replacement just so happens to be where you're at in this upcoming draft, where all you need is a top 3 pick to be able to find your replacement.
It all lies on that because he's had the crutch of being able to say, oh, they don't need him. We're a rebuilding team. You know, they're trying to lose. They're tanking. He has the crutch. If it's a winning team, I guarantee you the narrative would be a lot different of, wow, get this guy off my team. But 2 years, hasn't touched the court. You know, we like get him off the team. It's a completely different narrative for a winning and losing team. But I really think this next year, like you said, Anthony, like if he's not playing over 50% of these games, you really got to take a step back and really reconsider his future with this team because that's a good 3 years just down the drain of a 6th overall pick.
And that's
funny.
That's what makes it tough. Also, is that you really can't rely on him missing too many games because this upcoming season should be the season where you're saying we have to make it to the play-in tournament. You need to be able to realistically to be able to win the most amount of games possible to be put in that position. You need a player like Jonathan Isaac to be healthy and ready to go. What were you saying now?
I was gonna say, what's funny though, we're not off to a good start because he was just trying to get back to the court, trying to kind of be in practice and full contact, not even full contact yet, and bam, injury again, surgery on his hamstring now. So it's unfortunate. I'm glad it happened now, and he's just done the whole season, whatever. But like you said, man, like we cannot go into next year training camp and still be wondering, is he going to be ready? Is he going to play in preseason? Is he going to play in the regular season? If that's the case, my goodness, like you got to at some point turn the page and say, hey, it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah, but that's what makes the offseason so important because you take a look at, the players down the line and each person can really focus on that one specific thing that will help improve their game. One of the things that, we've mentioned before is Cole Anthony getting stronger. So it was great to see that in a recent article from the Orlando Sentinel, Cole Anthony said that he's looking to bulk up this summer. So according to the Orlando Sentinel, he says that he's focusing on developing multiple parts of his game, especially in the weight room. And he's quoted saying, I've been telling everybody when y'all see me in the summer, I'm going to be strong. They're going to be like, dang, Cole is that Eric Bledsoe. So he wants to be able to be really, really physical because a lot of his issues was that he wasn't able to finish in the paint. How important is it for a player like Cole Anthony to bulk up? Like, if you want him to be able to be like that strong, or would you rather him kind of stay fluid and still, put a big focus on his quickness and ball handles?
So I think, yes, I go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think that it's very it's tough to tell what you want out of that because I think he has the quickness and the frame right now already to be an explosive and somewhat strong enough guard. He's already, pretty above average strength for a 6'2" guy in the NBA. But I'd say that it could also probably do wonders for his matchups on defense, handling physicality, because we know that's by far his biggest pitfall. That's what keeps him off the court at times is how much of a net negative he is on the defensive end. So if it can help allude to that problem and solve that a little bit, if that can be of any like assistance to his defensive weaknesses, I say go for it if that's really what it will take. But I'm sure he's not doing that just for like the defensive purposes. He's probably doing it just to be, like you said, a better finisher. But I do think I'm hoping that he'll reap the benefits through defense.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing is getting stronger enough to be able to finish inside, because I think he gets there. That's the number one component. You got to get to the hoop. He gets there. The problem is he's so fragile that he gets bumped around, not quite to be a foul, but enough to throw him off on that layup attempt, ends up being a miss. Same thing on a floater. He gets a little push. Now he's out of, again, that floater's a little bit off. It's a miss. So I think that's going to come in really, really handy to get more fouls, to be more aggressive in general, and be more confident at the end of the day, because you can tell he's very emotional. So when he's missing 2, 3, 4 layups, now his whole game, it's out of whack. He cannot hit a shot. He's now down on himself. So I think this may end up being a good thing for him. Now, it's going to happen. We'll see. He's kind of small in frame as it is. But again, I know the Magic try to do the JI treatment and make him eat 6 meals a day and just hit the gym all day long. If that happens, we may see a different call. And I think, again, it will definitely help him in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at a player like Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe weighs a solid 205. Cole Anthony right now sitting at about 185. And he's going up against, bigger point guards. Someone like Tyrese Maxey, he weighs 200 pounds. So I think that it would be a good look for him to be able to put on some muscle. But I don't want other aspects of his game to hinder because of it. His quickness, his agility, his balance. We don't want him to lose any of those things. So I think that, if you put on, let's say that he puts on another 10 pounds and then the season starts and then he kind of starts losing that to where it's more of a comfortable weight, I think that would do wonders for him. But the last thing we want is for him to like not be able to jump out of the gym or not be able to, dunk a basketball in an NBA contest wearing some Timberlands.
No, I agree there. I think it'd be rough if we don't see any more of those cold jams. Those are always the most thunderous jams. And if getting bigger is going to take away from that, then I don't know, man. It's going to be bittersweet.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's been a lot of posts on social media with Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton working out in the weight room, the Magic weight room. At the same time, we were able to see that Michael Carter-Williams is also working out with them. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this is a way to keep Michael Carter-Williams around? Do you see him, potentially signing another contract with the Magic? Do you even want to see him come back with the Magic? What are your thoughts on that, Kieran?
With MCW, it's always been a little bit of a difficult situation, in my opinion, because he at those playoff years, he really did put out a lot of heart. He was really like one of those players you're like, he doesn't pop off the box score, but he's one of those guys that you can credit a win to, especially like late in a playoff run. He's one of those guys you need. But during that he left a sour taste in my mouth because of that last rebuilding year. Man, it was a rough go at it watching him play before we had eventually moved on to the next season. That was right after the trade deadline. I don't know, something about watching him play it ticked me off. He was not playing his best, and it was just rough to watch him. I would end up like when he would check in, I'm like, man, I shut the game off. But for right now, I think it'd be really nice to have him around as just a culture piece. I wouldn't say getting a roster spot specifically. Maybe like a job as like not really assistant coach, but just player development specialist, something around that line. Obviously, he's not retired, so he's probably going to keep his options open. But I do think it'd be great to have him around as a locker room presence. But if you're going to be taking minutes away from our guards, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the good thing about him is, again, great energy guy, positive dude. The locker room seems like they love him, right? So I think that's a good thing. So if for some reason the Magic say, hey, you're going to be that vet at the end of the bench, maybe replacing Robin, who knows, then great. Let's do that. He's a vet. We need vets in the locker room. But as Kieran mentioned, he cannot be taking minutes away from our guards, especially Markel, Jalen, Cole. Like those guys gotta play all the minutes the guards can take. They gotta get him. So I would be okay with it in that Robin Lopez role, where it's basically you're on the bench, you're chilling, we're painting you to be a leader, a guy the guys can call when they have any questions, concerns. You're that person. As Kieran mentioned, if he goes around and tries free agency and cannot find a home, he wants to be a development coach, whatever it may be for the Magic, more than happy to have him in that role as well. So again, don't mind him at all in the locker room. It's a great thing, I think, for the young guys. They respect him. But at the same time, again, I just don't want it to interfere with the minutes in what we're doing going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
We barely have any vets. You know what I mean? You take a look at everything that we've heard from Terrence Ross. We already feel like he's going to be out the door. I don't see us bringing back Rolo. So if we're just looking at what we have, you're really looking at just Gary Harris and then what, Jonathan Isaac and Markel Fultz. That's your next level of veterans. I mean, they're still trying to focus on themselves and being able to stay healthy. I think that Michael Carter would be a great option. What I like about Michael Carter Williams is the fact that he's versatile. You can have him play 1, 2, or 3. So I really wouldn't worry too much about him taking away minutes because you can really plug and play him, anywhere of those 3 spots. And if history has shown us anything, we deal a lot with injuries. There's going to be moments and times where we're going to have to have players to be able to fill in. If it's not Michael Carter Williams, who really is out there? Al, you and I, we talked about the free agent list. This free agent draft class, and it's not pretty. It's not a whole lot of veterans out there that you're really going to add to the team is going to make the team a million times better. That's not the case for us, unfortunately. I mean, we experimented with each one more, and how did that go?
He didn't touch the court.
Exactly. We paid him.
He got his bag and he left.
Yeah, we paid him, and he showed Jalen Suggs how to do a floater, and that was it. There was nothing else. So I'm all for Michael Carter Williams. He gets a lot of flack from the fan base, and I understand the reasons why. But he's someone that for a fact is going to go out there and he's going to put 110 effort. He's going to play hard, and he's going to play really good defense. You maybe don't want him to shoot as many shots as he would take, and I get that. But he's still a serviceable player, and I think that he's someone that can still add a lot of values. He's a veteran that already knows the guys. There's already chemistry there, so I think that just from that aspect, I would definitely love to have him back on the team. Easy.
But let's be shooting threes.
Yeah, I know. All right, so we're gonna transition into our Tankathon.com NBA lottery simulation to kind of see where we land. We've gotten pretty lucky the last couple times. So we've only done it twice. The first time we landed third, and then the second time we landed with the number 1 pick in the draft. So interesting to see kind of how today's plays out. Kieran, if you don't know, what we plan on doing is doing a simulation every single episode leading up to the lottery, and then collecting that data and to kind of see how our odds ultimately end up playing out.
I like that.
So Kieran, we're gonna put you on the hot seat today. So we're gonna simulate here in a second, and then wherever we land, we're gonna kind of play and see who we think will be available, and who do you pick for the Magic. So let's do this.
As a reminder to those listening, watch, the lowest we can go is 6. And with the 2022 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic select number 5. So we ended up dropping 3 spots. All right. So you have to imagine that the top 3, and maybe we'll just use the Ringer as
I got
our
it
mock.
here. I got it.
Perfect.
So
All right.
according
number
to them,
one pick, according to them, goes to Paolo.
Yep.
Number 2,
Okay.
Jabari Smith. Number 3, Chet. 4, Jaden Ivey. So
This
with the
worked out.
5th pick, we were just talking about this off air, so it all makes sense. It all comes together. With the 5th pick, who are you selecting and why?
That man right there, Mr. Shaden Sharp, man. I'm telling you, it seems like the only other teams that wouldn't take Jaden Ivey at 4 would be Orlando or would be OKC just because of the guard logjam. I think if Detroit or Houston land number 4, like in the sim where Houston lands number 4, they're taking Ivy. They need that solid running mate for Cade or for Jalen Green, and they're gonna want to take that guy that's marked number 4, marked higher than Shadon Sharp for you have decent criteria to go off of. But with Orlando, you're at 5th again. This is like your what like I can't even count how many times we've dropped in the lottery since
Every single
post
time.
Dwight every single time. So they're done with going for the safe pick, the best fit. You got to take a risk and you got to take Shadon Sharp. This is a guy who like Al said, like you missed out on your chance for Jalen Green. Here's your chance to get that insane hops, self creation, just superstar written all over him. Young kid, not a lot of proven play, but he's still one of those guys. We have enough film. There's enough criteria, enough draft speculation that he can be that guy. He's number 1 ranked high school player for a reason. So Shadon Sharp, 100%. It should be the Orlando Magic's pick. I wouldn't be surprised if they went for a guy like Keegan Murray though, but I would really like Shadon Sharp with that pick. I would take them. I'd take him if I was them.
Hey, what
I
about
think
you?
what makes Shaden Sharp so interesting is the unknown. We didn't get a chance to see him in college. So the last real basketball that he played in was high school, and you look at someone that was classified as being the number 1 recruit for 2022. He is someone that is athletic. He's someone that can handle the ball, has really good perimeter shooting, and there were talks that if he did play in Kentucky and he might have gone the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick. He might have been that top 3. I think that, and we spoke a little bit about this off air, but I think that once teams start bringing him in and being able to have a workout, I think that he could mess up a lot of the mocks. Right now, he's sitting at 5 in a lot of different mock drafts. That could change. It could possibly change. On the Ringer, they have him listed as some NBA comparable to Paul George, a taller Bradley Beal, and Jalen Green. He's 6'6", 175 pounds, so I would like to see him put on more weight. But weight isn't necessarily a concern for me when it comes to rookies coming into the NBA. I think that Shaden Sharp, if you miss out on the top 3, you gotta swing big, and I think that he's definitely a swing big type of player.
I mean, those comps you listed, I mean, who would not want to have that young player, in their roster, along with what we already have in our roster? So that's the thing that's so intriguing about him. As I've tweeted recently, like he fits what we're doing. Like he can play the 3, he can play the 2. So the concern is, will we have too many guards, right? Because we have basically Suggs, Cole, Markel, RJ. If we keep Gary Harris and now you're adding Sharp to the equation, that's a lot of guards. It's true. It is a concern. But man, if you're the Magic, you're giving yourself a really good chance at getting at least one of those guys to really be something. Whether it's Suggs, it's Cole Anthony, it's Markel, or now Sharp. All of a sudden, you have a really, really good set of young guys that if 1 or 2 of those become good, now you pair that up with Franz, Wendell, and possibly J.I. coming back healthy, or heck, Chuma becoming a player that maybe surprises all of us next season. All of a sudden, you have a really, really good set of young guys with potential. So that's what's intriguing to me about him, is that he fits the roster better than probably anyone in that list of top 5 if things work out. And those comps, I mean, my goodness, if he ends up being any of those guys, that's a huge win for the Magic in this draft.
I mean, but what do you say to the people that say that we already have too many wings? What do you do?
We have
what decisions you make?
I mean, look, they could say that all they want. You don't pass up on a guy like Shaden Sharp when you're in need of a go-to scorer like the Magic. I had been on a Twitter Spaces with OMD, Philip Russman Reich, and we were talking about what Orlando's main goal should be coming out of this draft. And if the answer is anything other than alpha scorer, it's wrong. You need a guy who can get a bucket, crunch time, give him the ball and get the hell out the way. You need to have a guy like that. And we just don't. It's just as simple as that. We might, down the line with guys like Franz, maybe like Markel, but as of right now, you don't have that player you can invest all your tools in, give him the keys, let him be the scorer that he wants to be. And if you're falling out of the top 3, you don't get this shot at Paolo. Shadon Sharp is next on your list, and then after that, it's just if you're at 6 and Shadon Sharp's off the board, then you got to just go with whatever you got. But I think at 5, you take Shadon Sharp every time strictly because of that. You need an alpha scorer. So screw the naysayers, screw what they say about too many guards. We'll make it work. This is a possible superstar. You don't say no to that.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately when we look like a year down, halfway through the season down, we take a look back, and you know how they always have these articles about redrafting the draft class, the early looks. I think that ultimately we'll end up looking at him as a player that people are saying, damn, how did we let that slip? How did we let that slip? But the biggest risk is the fact that there's still a lot of the unknowns, because there's been a gap of time where people really haven't been able to see what he's able to do playing with more elite players. So it's gonna be interesting. If you fall out, man, that's definitely the guy to look at for sure. Now, let's say that we do get lucky. You've said in multiple times that Paolo's your guy. Why would Paolo be the guy that the Orlando Magic should draft? So if the Magic get the number 1 pick, why would Paolo be that guy?
Oh, for many reasons. First, I think he's just a seamless fit into the team. You have a very uber synergized team in the Magic. You guys got guys like Markel, Suggs, Franz, Wendell, who are just screening, passing, great playmakers, all of them. And then you have that perfect insertion of Paolo, who is already a great passing forward. That's one of his best strengths. And you pair that with the ability that he can go in and drive. He's physically dominant, and he can end up being that potential number 1 option scoring wise. You don't say no to that. You can say yes to Jabari Smith, that wow, his shot making is great, great defense and all this, but guys like Jabari Smith, guys like Chet Holmgren, they don't have the handle, they don't have the ball dominance to ever end up being that star forward that you give that forward the ball and you expect a score. You have to work and you have to make plays for them. But Paolo is perfectly capable of creating his own shot. And one of people's biggest concerns with Paolo is his defensive weaknesses. However, you got a crazy defensive squad like the Orlando Magic. Please, that can be masked very easily. And plus, he can learn defense that's one of the things that people, when they come into the draft, defense is always a weakness, but it's easily teachable. It just takes some effort. It takes the right knowledge. It's a lot harder to learn than offense is.
It's like I consider Kieran the Paolo kind of guru. Because again, I've heard you on Twitter. I've seen you different avenues talk about him. I'm gonna hit you with the cons. So what I'm looking at that are things that I'm not a big fan of, just by looking and what I've seen, and I want to hear your response to that. So first of all, you already touched upon it: defensive effort. Not so much that he cannot play defense, but the effort. I've read multiple places now. Laziness comes to mind. He gives up on plays, doesn't follow his guys. So do you think that could work in a Magic system where all we do is defense first? And you talked about it briefly. We can mask that. We can kind of cover it. But would our front office want to draft a guy like that when, again, their mindset is defense first usually? Number 2, not a knockdown shooter, especially from three-point range. And we know this team needs three-point shooting. I mean, we've been next to last or last for the last 5 years. So those 2 things kind of are just concerns that I have, thinking of just a Magic fit. What are your thoughts on those things?
The first one with the defensive effort, I think that's really intriguing because I think that's more of a mental game. You see the guy, he's big, he has the physicality of a great defender. All it takes is discipline, and you get into an NBA system. It really just depends on how the coaching knocks down on him and how they can really drill that into his mind that you want to be a part of this team, you want to be a part of Orlando Magic basketball. You play some defense and you try and you hustle. You look at guys like Jalen Suggs who go the extra mile for every defensive play, for every hustle play, and you have him as a sort of I'm not going to be like a mentor because he is a rookie at this moment, but you have role models for him to sort of back off of it, to look off of, and I feel like eventually it'll be learned. I doubt he's going to be this undisciplined his entire career. He can only go up from here. There's only upwards. And for the 3-point shooting part, I feel like, yeah, that can be a concern. But again, we've seen guys at his position. They can dominate without a 3-point shot. This guy has like, I'm not going to compare it to Zion because Zion's just a physically dominant, freak of nature. But he's one of those guys that he'll eat in the paint. That's where he's going to get his money off of, in the paint. So he doesn't really have to make a career off of 3-point shooting. It would be a nice addition, definitely a nice bonus. Hell, if you see Paolo with a 3-point shot and some defense, man, you're looking at a superstar. So it'll all just come down to discipline, to training, to coaching. But I do think that those are two fixable errors. It's a lot better than the concern of Jabari Smith's ball handling, Chet Holmgren's weight. That's gonna take a long time for it to actually be at an NBA level of readiness. So those two weaknesses that you mentioned, Al, I feel like they're at first glance they're easily maskable, for his first year, and they're teachable. I think that down the road, a couple of years down, we'll see those and we'll be like, wow, it's pretty great that he improved so quickly on stuff like that. So I'm not entirely worried about it.
6'10", 250 pounds. In comparison to Jabari and to Chet, he's someone that, in my opinion, can impact the game way more right away just because of his size. He's someone that grew up playing the guard position and just with a big body developed into being more physical and being a big man. My concern with Paolo is the sweating. Is the sweating a concern? Is it a concern? Yeah. Should people be worried about it, or is it not that big of a deal and I should stop bringing it up?
It's every week, Anthony. Every week.
I have to know. I still don't.
Deeper.
I've Googled and I find nothing beneficial to.
I've figured it out. They said NBA trainers like I saw the one that worked with Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. He was asked about it, and they said like that's one of those just physical anomalies. Like they're pretty minor. It'll fizzle out once he gets into the league. You have you're comparing it to Duke's training staff and like he doesn't have an NBA developmental staff with him and a medical staff. I'm not going to say ours is something to be proud of, but he's going to get a lot more resources. And I've seen multiple opinions say, you can be a little mildly concerned about it starting out, but it's going to fizzle out eventually. It's really not that big of a deal to be worried about. It's definitely not something to consider when picking him in the draft. It's not something that you say, well, I like him, but I might have to pass up on him because of it. It's just one of those things. You just got to keep your eye out on it.
It's really my only concern. I mean, outside of that, I get your concerns with the shooting, but we can't sit here and act like he can't shoot. He can shoot. It's not at the knockdown level as somebody like Jabari. And I think that, if we're comparing, we can all confidently say that between the top three, he probably had the most impressive NCAA tournament performance wise. So he's someone that is not, shying away from the big moments in the big stage. And I think that if we're looking at it from the lenses of replacing Jonathan Isaac no longer in the picture, I have confidence that, you're bringing someone that can really, really bring a lot of his attributes to the team and could excel and push the team forward. Why would you not select Paolo, Kieran? What would make you not want to select
the one thing that would make me not want to select, it has nothing to do with Paolo himself, I'll tell you, because the only things that would make me not want to select him is the other prospects. Okay, because to me he's a perfect number one pick. Like if it was me, if I had the consensus of all other scouts, I'd say Paolo's your consensus number one. But those two other picks in the top three, those are very intriguing too, because I think about the fit a lot. I think a lot about the fit of Markelle Fultz and Jabari Smith Jr., Markelle Fultz and Chet Holmgren and Wendell Carter, and how well those would mix. You have the screen ability of Wendell, the lob threat of Chet, and then Chet is also, I think, probably the most highly touted shot blocking prospect since Anthony Davis. It's really not crazy to say that. He has the most insane reach that I've seen in recent years to just be able to cover grounds on rim protection level. That's going to be like he's pretty much a guaranteed like all defensive selection sometime down the line in his career. So that's going to be tough to pass on. And then you also have Jabari Smith, who is making shots like just a demon. Like this guy can go on streaks where he just won't miss. And I'm talking like fadeaways right in your mouth. Like you can't do anything to stop it. And Magic have never had a player like that. You get him on the Magic, and he's going to be set up for success. When you have playmakers like Markel and passing forwards like Franz, I feel like it'd be a really seamless fit. Plus his defense too. Jabari is also one of the best defenders in this class by a long shot, and he would fit seamlessly with the defensive culture we have. That's the only thing that would make me not want to pick Paolo, and that's the only reason why I haven't been talking about Paolo this whole time, is because Paolo is a perfect number 1 pick to me.
So I want to just quickly ask both of you guys. So today, May 5th, another week to go. We're gonna have for the lottery. Kieran, right now, if the Magic have the number 1 pick, who are you picking right now?
Paolo Banchero.
How about you? And I'm playing this game with Anthony for every single week, and it's a different name
every single week. It changes. It changes. Nah, man, I'm comfortable and I'm confident. I even feel even more comfortable and confident now speaking with Kieran. You've already sold me on the whole sweating situation. So today will be the official last
Nice.
episode that I ever bring up the sweating. That's it. I'm
I like
good.
that.
I'm good. No more Paolo and sweating.
So your guy is Paolo. So today, that's your pick.
Yeah, man. But what's so crazy is that all the mock drafts are so like everywhere is so different. Like you still got so many of these mock drafts that still have Jabari number 1. We have the Ringer that just updated theirs and they have Paolo number 1. I really think that the landscape of the mock drafts is really going to change once we start getting these players in. And I'm curious and I'm super interested to find out kind of how the reports are and even hearing from the guys directly after their workouts. Because I think that it's going to be a tall tale to be able to find out more about, the guy's mentality. Because if you have a player like Paolo that's number 1, that, we see everything that's great. We see all his upside, but his mentality is more Ben Simmons-ish, then that might kind of scare you away a little bit, because then the talent really doesn't all that matter. And I feel like a big part of everything's working out, but really getting into the guys' heads, I think it's just as important.
Yeah, and I think they're definitely going to take that into account. You see guys like Weltman and Hammond. They're big guys on character. You saw how close they are with Markel and how high they were on Suggs and his mentality. So. And I think that's going to come down to a lot of the mental stuff, because again, these guys, they all have insane amount of talent. Especially if we land top 3, they're going to have their hefty choice of talent. And I don't know, it's going to be a tough decision. But like you said, Anthony, it'll be interesting to see what the discourse is going to be like during the combine and the workouts and that era in time. Yeah,
we'll find that out soon. We're looking at what is it, May 17th? So we're about 10 days away from the lottery to find out where we're at. Because who knows, if we don't make it into the top 3, we might not get a chance to work out with none of these guys. So it's part of the game. So we'll find out soon enough. Fingers crossed. Kieran, I appreciate you so much. Joining us on this episode and dropping some Paolo knowledge. You can find Kieran on social media at KP20Magic. Also read some of his work, man. A lot of in-depth analysis on OrlandoMagicHQ.com. Kieran, it was a pleasure, man.
Thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. It was amazing. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Take care. It was great talking hoops with y'all.
Yeah, man. You too. Appreciate you guys for listening. It's a wrap. Catch you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. For all the latest Orlando Magic news and updates, follow us on Twitter at the OZone Pod and on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.